Hey guys, welcome back to Flooded With Flavour. It's the 4th of July weekend and yes, I understand the irony of that being British. We're going to celebrate by doing something incredibly American and incredibly barbecue. I've got here with me today a 9.7 pound pork butt and we're going to turn this bad boy into not only a heaping pile of pulled pork, we're also going to turn it into some crackling, and we're also, on top of all that, going to make a really nice vinegar sauce to go on top of the pork. It's going to be a long cook, it's going to be a good cook, so let's get to it. So as you can see, this pork butt is not only massive, it also has something on the top of it. Now, I think in the US, typically when you get a pork butt, like a compact Duroc pork butt or something like that, it comes just with a fat cap and nothing else. However, for some reason over here, when we get them like this, it's quite hard to get American cuts in the UK, but when we do get them, they come with the rind on, which is what you can see on top right here. And obviously we don't want to smoke the rind. I'm going to convert that rind into crackling, but to do that, I got to take it off. So we're going to trim the rind off the butt right now. Now I'm going to take this rind off along with a good portion of the fat cap, because the fat cap that is under the rind is significantly bigger than the typical fat cap that you would see on a pork butt. So I'm gonna leave some of the fat on where I can. Obviously we're gonna be a bit rough here because you can't get perfect, but I'm gonna try and leave some of the fat on and take the rind off and then save the rind and convert it into good old crackling. So here we have the rind taken off. That was not an easy job, I'll tell you, but that is gonna make some good crackling tomorrow. I'll show you guys how we do that later on in the video. I am just gonna kind of tidy it up a little bit, take off any loose bits of fat, like this bit here, and then also this edge here. I'm just going to take off a little bit here, just for real like aesthetic purposes, to be honest with you. No actual purpose, just I like my butts to look kind of square and nice and even. So now that we've kind of sort of semi-trimmed slash butchered this this pork butt, let's take a look at what's actually in the butt. So we have two major parts of a pork butt, if you ask me. We have around here the bone. Now located around that bone is going to be a lot of really dark meat, and also that bone is going to act as an internal thermometer. We're really going to know when this butt's done. If that bone slides out nice and clean, you'll know the butt's done. And then if I flip it around, this bit here is called the money muscle. Now, when you're cooking at home, like I am, and like many of you at home are probably doing if you're following along, that money muscle isn't particularly important, but when you do, for example, like a barbecue competition, that muscle right there is what you're going to serve to the judges. That's the best bit of the butt, many say. But what we're going to do is we're just going to pull the entire thing, mix all that light meat and that dark meat together with some good bark that we've built on the butt, and eat it. It's going to be some good eating pork. So let's talk about the way we're going to cook this before we even talk about rubs, right? So this is going to be another overnight cook. It's a big butt, and to be honest, I don't feel like waking up at like 3 a.m. to stick it on the pit. So I'm going to be a little bit lazy, but you know, this is one of the benefits of having a pellet grill over a stick burner or something. And I'm going to stick it in later tonight at like 11 p.m. Let it ride overnight in some low and slow apple wood and also pecan wood for probably 8-ish hours, and then when I get up, we're gonna glaze it, we're gonna wrap it in some foil, we're gonna let it ride for a while longer, and then we're gonna take it off when it's done, glaze it again, let the glaze set, and then pull it. So now that I've talked about what we're gonna do, let's actually get to doing it. So let's start with the rubs. I'm gonna hit this bad boy with 3 rubs. Now it's a big piece of meat, so it can really take some rub. I'm gonna start, I think, probably on the fat side, and then flip it over to the top side, and then I'm gonna once I've rubbed it, I'm gonna let the butt rest for a few hours before I put it on the pit, because right now it's quite a long time before we're gonna put it on. So the base layer for this butt is gonna be Malcolm Reed's AP seasoning, the one and only, one of my favorite rubs of all time, probably my favorite rub of all time, goes well on literally anything. Like I'm talking meat, eggs, veggies, anything you eat, this bad boy is good on, and this is gonna form the base layer of our bark. Gonna get a good layer of the AP on first. Okay, so the second rub we're gonna hit it with is Malcolm Reed's, once again, the barbecue rub. This is gonna be the main layer of barbecue, I would say, for this butt. But there is going to be one thing we'll add after. So let's get the bottom side of this butt nice and rubbed up. Now you can use a binder with pork butts. I've used mustard before. Mustard is typically the go-to. A lot of people like to use mustard on their pork butts, but I don't think I really need it. It's moist enough. The rub will stick. It's not entirely necessary. And then the top layer of this bark is going to be built by Heath Royals Honey Chipotle Rub. This is one that I'm really excited to try out. I put it on, I think, chicken a few weeks ago, and it was insanely nice. But I mean, honey and chipotle sounds perfect on the butt. So let's get a nice little dusting of this on top of the AP and the barbecue rub. Not too much of this. This is just going to form like a nice little top layer. Okay, so now that side is nice and rubbed up. Doesn't really matter too much about the rub really adhering on the fat side because the fat's going to render and drip. What we are going to do is we're going to flip this butt over and we're going to get the meat side rubbed. So again, we're going to go with a layer of AP. Don't forget to get those sides as well. Then we're going to go on with a heavy layer of the barbecue rub. And then finally for the top layer, we're going to hit it again with Heath Royals Honey Chipotle Rub. Just a light dusting of this, not too much of this because it doesn't want to be too overpowering, just enough to taste it. Right, so there you have a nice rubbed up butt. I'm sure that won't be memed in the comments. So the plan for this right now, because it's not going to be going on a pit for probably another 4.5 hours, I'm going to stick this back in the fridge now for maybe 2 hours, and then about 2.5 hours before I put it on the pit, I'm going to take it out of the fridge and leave it out on the worktop just to let it come up to room temp. What's going to happen is it's going to form this kind of muddy texture on top of the meat. That is basically the rub sucking the moisture out of the meat and creating this tacky surface that allows the rub to stick to the meat, that allows the rub to go into the meat, and that helps with bark formation, which is going to be great. Again, I'll show footage of that when it happens, but for now, let's get this bad boy back in the fridge and wait for a few hours. So this butt's been resting now for about 2.5 hours. Time to get her on the pit. So it's about midnight right now, about 30 minutes after I said I was going to put the butt on, but as you can see, we've got the butt on the pit ready for a night in the smoke. The pit is running at about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. We've got a probe in the thickest part of the meat, not touching the bone, just so we can know roughly when it hits the stall, about 160, but it's really going to be a case of just waking up around 7:30 a.m, 8 a.m. maybe after about 8 hours. Just checking the bark, seeing how we're looking before we glaze it and wrap it in some foil. So it's time for me to head to bed, say goodnight to the butt. I'll see you in the morning. So, good morning. It's been about 9 hours since I last spoke to you guys. The butt has been on for, well, 9 hours, so let's take a peek. Ooh, she's looking good. So, as you can see, we've got that great mahogany colour. What you should be expecting at this point is to be able to run your finger across the butt and see very little to no rub come off, which, as you can see, is the case. So that means it's ready to wrap. We're going to take the butt off now, we're going to crank the temp up to 250, and we're going to get it back on. So because we're going to be glazing this butt today, before I wrap it, I do want to get a little bit of like kind of pre-glaze in there with the wrap, which should also help create like a really nice coloured bark as well. It'll add like a unique flavour to the bark. So for that kind of pre-glaze, we're going to be using the one and only Malcolm Reed's Killer Hogs vinegar sauce. Not too much of this, just like a little drizzle over the top before we wrap it. So that's going to work really well as kind of like a bit of moisture in the wrap as well to help keep the meat moist. So now let's get it wrapped. Now this baby's wrapped. Get it back out on the pit. So just like before, we're going to go fat down, meat side up on the pit. We're also going to get the probe back in the thick part of the meat, just through the top. About there, she gets some good temp readings. And now it's just going to be a case of letting this baby run until she's really just probe tender. That's going to be in roughly the 190 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit range, but again, with a butt, we're not really looking for like any specific temperature. Rather, we're looking for that just pure probe tenderness, that absolute warm butter probe feel. I have bumped the temp up on the pit to like 250 Fahrenheit to let the rest of this cook ride out. We've got enough smoke on the butt now, so it really is just about finishing off the cook. So I'll update you guys later on when we hit that probe tenderness so we can actually glaze this bad boy. So whilst we wait for the butt to finish, let me show you how I made the Carolina vinegar sauce that I finished the butt with. So, very simple. Over low to medium heat in a pan, I put 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of ketchup, half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, hot sauce, that the amount of which varies based on what your heat tolerance is. I like spicy food, so I put a lot of hot sauce in, and then the juice of half a lemon along with that half of the lemon itself. I then just lightly whisked it together and left it to simmer over low to medium heat until the sugar and the salt and the pepper really broke down and didn't leave any granules in the bottom of the sauce. Then poured it into a glass container, left it to cool, and then put it in a sauce bottle. And then let's do the crackling as well. This was super simple. All I did was score the rind diagonally both ways with a really sharp knife, and then I rubbed some olive oil into it along with some sea salt, put it on a baking tray on top of some foil so the fat didn't drip down, and put it in the oven for about 45 minutes at 220 Celsius or 430 Fahrenheit until it looked like this and made a sound like this. Trust me, this crackling was next level. Anyways, back to the butt. So this butt's been on for about another 4 hours now. I did just test it and it is absolutely probe tender, running around 195 internal right now. I will just show you guys what I mean by probe tender. So you see they've already got a probe in there in the middle, but if I just go in with this probe, when I get through the foil, like butter, just straight through, there's no tension or cohesion or anything. Absolute warm butter. Look at that. A beautiful sight. So that means it's time to get this bad boy inside and glaze it. So we've got the butt inside now, which means it's time to unwrap it. Let's see how it's looking. Obviously we've not finished cooking it yet, we've got to glaze it still, but oh, she's looking like a beauty. Look at that. That is what I call a pork butt. I'm going to try and get it out of here without it breaking up. It's already super tender, like I showed you guys. We're just going to get it on a wire baking rack to glaze it, just so the sauce doesn't go everywhere. Right, so now it's time to glaze this pork butt. So the glaze I'm using today is, once again, from Malcolm Reed, his Killer Hogs company. It's a 50-50 blend of his vinegar sauce and also the barbecue sauce. Just stuck it in the microwave for about a minute just to warm it up and make it a bit more liquidy. So we're just going to go liberally on top of this butt. I am going to mop it just a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, a pork butt is, as much as I talk about aesthetics, a butt is less about aesthetics and more about just good, lovely taste. And I think by the look of this butt, this is going to taste damn fine, if I say so myself. This might just be one of the nicest butts, if not the nicest butt that I've ever cooked. I can already see all the comments about me talking about nice butts, aesthetic butts, square butts, trimmed butts. I can already see all the comments. I know you guys are going to be putting some stuff in there. Right, so that butt is nice and glazed. That means it's time to get it back on the pit to let that glaze set. So this butt has been glazing now for about 15 minutes, and I mean, look at it. It's looking damn good. I think it's time for us to pull us a butt. So when handling a butt of this temperature, you want to be wearing heat protectors underneath your gloves. These little things are heat protectors because this bad boy is hot. Oh, it's time to pull it. Look at that. So first off, let's test out the what they call the internal instant read thermometer. The bone, when it comes out, I mean, that clean. Oh, the glaze is set a little bit. There you go. When it comes out that clean, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So let's get to pulling this bad boy. So around here we have that iconic money muscle, if you will. I'll try and pull it out on its own, but I don't really care too much, to be honest with you. I just want to pull some good eating pork. This is just looking beautiful. I mean, you can see that incredible smoke ring there that we've built. Just right there. That is what happens if you leave a butt on some smoke for how long now? 12 hours-ish. This has been roughly a 12-hour smoke. The bark is formed perfectly with the glaze. Man, we just gotta pull this. There's so much good meat in here. It is just hand tender. It's still screaming hot, even through these glove liners. I'm feeling this heat, let me tell you. Got some great meat in here, getting towards the darker side where that big bone was. Whew, this is real hot. I'm not gonna have any fingertips left after this, but trust me, if this meat tastes anywhere near as good as it looks, it'll be worth it. Whoo, that's a hot butt, that is. That is a hot butt. Man, I feel like I'm getting a steam facial from this thing. I'm starting to sweat a little bit. You know what, I think right now I gotta try some of this glazed bark. This just looks too beautiful not to try. A little bit hot. Oh. That right there is a pork butt. My God. I mean, it goes without saying, right? But you can tell here, just a pork butt of this size, around 9 pounds. Once you've taken the rind off, this can feed a lot of people. Probably about 2 or 3 meals for me, 2 maybe. I can put away a lot of this stuff, especially when it's this good. But this butt can feed a lot of people. If you want to do pulled pork tacos, pulled pork sandwiches, like we're going to do in a second, nachos, you can do pulled pork beans, mac and cheese. There's so much stuff you can do with pulled pork. This is honestly one of the most versatile things that you can cook out on a pit. The dark meat is going to be really nice mixed in with the light meat, especially when we hit it with that homemade Carolina vinegar sauce that I'm about to show you guys in a second. Just want to get some of these little bits of fat off on the bottom. I mean, you don't really want to eat that. I like to take the real like jelly, stringy bits of fat out and just leave it on the side. I mean, look at this here. Look at the yield of this butt. This is a lot of pork. This will feed a lot of people for a lot of meals. Or, like I said, me for maybe 2 or 3 meals. So now that we've got this pork pulled and absolutely tested, let's hit it with some of that homemade vinegar sauce. I'm not going to hit it with too much because this is quite a spicy sauce, but going to hit it with enough. There's quite a lot of chili flakes in here. I overdid the chili flakes a little bit because I like heat. Obviously, you guys can go as much or as little as you want. So let's just toss this meat real quick in the sauce. Again, look at the yield of this butt. There's a lot of meat here. So, like I said before, there are so many ways you can serve a pork butt. One of the ways I'm going to serve it is good old fashioned, just on a sandwich. So, we're going to go in with a nice heaped, very heaped handful of pork onto a bread roll. Make sure to get some of the good bark pieces in there as well. I'm going to hit it again with another little bit of this homemade vinegar sauce. Not too much, just a little bit. And then we're going to finish it with some of Malcolm Reed's dill pickles. I think we can probably go just one of these chunky bad boys on there. Now you can hit this with any sauce you want. You can hit it with slaw. Even potato salad goes well on these, but just look at that for a sandwich. So big, it's falling apart. You know what? I think it's only right for me to try this bad boy out. If I can hold it, that is. Here we go. That right there is one hell of a sandwich. My God. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Happy 4th of July to everyone in America and any other weird Brits like me that celebrate us getting kicked out. Happy 4th of July. Figured this was the best way to celebrate. Obviously, we also made the sauce and also the crackling, which you've already seen, but I'm saving that crackling for a late night snack tonight. I want to have that on its own. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this monster of a pork butt video. Get out there, make one for yourself, have a good 4th of July, and what's the outro? I'm going to get to eating this. I'm going to go eat this butt. See you guys in a bit.